Okay, we continue in Shmuel Alef, Perik Beis. We have concluded through Pasuk Chaf Vav. We have been describing the various negative activities of Chafni and Pinchas, and in contrast to Shmuel, who was growing up in the right way. And last time we met, we were in the middle of a piece from Rav Tzadok in the Resisei Loilo, where he describes a few important concepts. The first one is that how light comes from the darkness, and the second one, the difference between the idea of Mishkan and Mikdash, and how there's similarities where Mishkan is called Mikdash and Mikdash is called Mishkan, and each one represents a certain aspect. Mishkan represents the idea of Hashem dwelling amongst the people, where there's a sense of love and closeness. While Mikdash, from the word Kodesh, separation, there's a concept of separation and distancing and fear of Hashem. And how really both aspects are required in Avodas Hashem, where there has to be a sense of love and closeness to Hashem, while at the same time there has to be a sense of derech eretz and fear from Hashem. So I believe we're on the second page of this piece of Rav Tzadok, and we're going to finish him off, this piece off today, and then move on. He says, "V'zeh inyan," and this is what it means in Sefer Shmos, "V'nikdash bichvodi," that I'll be sanctified in my honor. The Mishkan ikri mikdash, that a Mishkan is called a Mikdash because Hashem is sanctified during the time of the Mishkan. Sheish bogam kedusha zu shel midas hakavod v'derech eretz, that the Mishkan also had to have the aspect of honor and derech eretz. She'nir yirezeh nasa. So how did this fear of Hashem develop in the Mishkan? It developed al yedei misas Nadav ve'Avihu. It developed through the death of Nadav and Avihu, just as the Mishkan was being consecrated. Shehevi yira gedol, it brought a great fear. Ki tchilas blitas kedusha zu de shchinas yisparach bekirbe bnei Yisrael, v'gam betumasam holit simcha v'toikev ava v'cheshek v'yizkar v'sla Hashem yisparach, because the actual the beginning of this holiness of the Shekhinah amongst the Jewish people, even in their state of Tumah, brought forth a simcha and a great love and a great wanting to come close to Hashem on the one hand, which would have to become tempered with Hashem's yira, with the fear of Hashem. And that's why the death of Nadav and Avihu was so important. And that's what and to show you how much, congeniality was going on between Klal Yisrael and Hashem, it says, this is what the Medrash says, I have that underlined now. Shetuye yayin nichnasu, they entered in a drunken state. Pirush, meaning besimcha yaseru, with way too much happiness. Ki yayin yisamach levavenosh, because wine makes people happy, as we know in Tehillim. Lo shitfu hayirema, they didn't combine the appropriate fear of Hashem together to the level of simcha that they had. And that was the problem of Nadav and Avihu. Coming in a wine state, they weren't drunk, but they were in a state of wine making them happy. It was too much of only one-sided happiness without enough of the yira. Moshe Amruzal, as it says in the Medrash, Gam came to Kfar Nigzar Aleim Mikoidim, because the truth of the matter is, there was already decreed on Nadav and Avihu that they should be killed. Already for this laxity in the fear of Hashem. Because it says by Matan Torah, at the giving of the Torah, right before that, a couple days before, it says, Vayechasu Elokim, they saw Hashem Vayochel, and they ate. That they were having korbanos, they were eating as they were looking at Hashem. So, in other words, they were feeling a little bit too comfortable with Hashem even then. Dugam came here derech eretz fear, also showed not enough derech eretz and fear for Hashem. Hu al yedei hatokef shenisar b'matan Torah Hashem oz amo yitain v'nisar od Yosef v'kishah Mishkan. And this came from the greater power that was aroused at the giving of the Torah, meaning the love. The Jewish people understood that Hashem loved them. Because he was giving them a Torah. He took them out of Egypt and gave them a Torah. And it came to this greatest understanding of the love that Hashem, by the fact that Hashem would dwell amongst them. So they got carried away in the atmosphere of love, that they became a bit too chummy with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You got to get eat and take a look up at Hashem, up in the Shemaim, and not be afraid to look at him in the middle of your meal. It's way too comfortable. But the Oz Hiskelo Fia Gamkein Or HaMikdash. But then as well, as the Mishkan began, then the light of the Mikdash, the concept of what the Mikdash is all about, began to come up. As it says, V'nikdash b'chodi. It will be sanctified in my kavod. B'mechubadai, through the ones who honor me. It said, so whoever gives kavod Hashem becomes honored. So I will honor them through the honor they give to me. But anyway, so what happens? The midas hakavod of derech eretz, the year, and since it was through them was caused a revelation of this attribute of honor for Hashem and derech eretz and fear through their death, Moshe Nemar, as it says in Vayikra, Ves Miktashai Tiro, you should be afraid of my Mikdash, and that's relating to the Mishkan. This is Shaykh L'Shem Mikdash, because this is really appropriate, the name Mikdash. Okay, name Kruyim, therefore they're called Michvodai. Michvodai, those who honor me. And they'll be honored. Shemuchubadim Eitzel Hashem Yisparach. They'll be honored by Hashem L'chein Hashem Yisparach Nischav El Yom, therefore he's honored to them. In other words, that's what Moshe said to Aaron. I wasn't sure who was going to die. Someone was going to die. There's way too much friendliness. I wasn't sure it was going to be you, it was going to be you. When I saw it was them, I said they're greater than us. You know, through my honored ones, I will be sanctified. So their death brought home the point that you have to have an awful lot of respect and reverence for Hashem. So it comes out that the deaths, well, he's explaining, the deaths of Nadav and Avihu were because they were so in love with Hashem, but they weren't, for tzaddikim on their level, they needed to have much more fear of Hashem, and they didn't come across with that fear of Hashem, and therefore Hashem had to kill them, and this was their second violation. Remember, you don't get it for the first time. Now, if they had warnings in between, I don't know. But the first time already, when they were right before Har Sinai, they were looking at Hashem, they were eating, they were, very, very happy about things, but not with enough fear. So the second time it happened, now we really have the Mishkan, now we're really going to start. Okay, so you're going to have to be the lesson for that. Okay, that's only one of many interpretations, and it's hard to say they were killed exclusively just for that reason, by being way too happy. But you combine other reasons that were there, then it would help. But clearly, the main problem was they were ushering in a love generation that was a little too much filled with love. Even though that's what the Mishkan was all about, to show Hashem's love for us, how He took care of us for 40 years in the desert and all those things. But still, in all, they didn't. It was too much. So this is what Reb Tzadok is comparing the sin of the house of Eli, of Chafni and Pinchas, to the sin of Nadav and Avihu. V'chein beis Eli, similar to the house of Eli, it says, Gemara says, Chatam ha'ikr, the main sin was bebizoyin kochim, with the denigrating the holy sacrifices, dasher yishkavun, etc., as was brought in these psukim, where the women had to wait for their korbanos to be brought. Hainu shishiu kineim, they delayed the bird offerings of the women. Dugam ke mitzad bizoyin kochim. That's also a denigration of the holy korbanos. So a holy kedushas hamigdash. This would now bring about the understanding of the kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash, shem hiskalos kvod shemayim v'tokaf, which reveals the power of heaven powerfully. Why? Ki chatoam nikra b'loshen hakasav. Because look how it's called. Interestingly, how Reb Tzadok learns it. He says their sin is called the way the text said, chatos hanaorim, the sin of the young men. Now we learned originally it was the agents of the Kohanim, but Reb Tzadok is learning it was their sin. And of course, chatos hainu shoygeg. Chatos is shoygeg, unintentional. Unaorim, what's youthfulness? And similarly, by before Matan Torah, they were the ones who were doing the avoda were called the Na'arim as well. If you look carefully, in Parshas Yisro and Mishpatim over there, when it discusses who did the work was done through Na'arim. What's the idea of Na'arim? Mashra du Maisa Naris Levat. It's an action of Naris, of youthfulness. But you got to remember also what goes with youthfulness. V'hainu ki benaris yesh adam toikev ava v'simcha kolech lefi darko v'inyanov. And also for a nar, but a youthful person has a shua daviv, has a great amount of love and joy, everyone according to their level. V'ovid Hashem benaros avodaso b'simcha yisera. And you serve Hashem with youthfulness, it's with joy because it's fresh. And that's why 2 weeks ago Yeshua was referred to as a nar. It was referred to a nar, and Rus was called a nara. So there is an advantage to be calling youthful. Like a young lad, a young maiden. Young people still have, maybe to the exclusion of this generation, but young people still have a great excitement for things. They're not what do you call it? They're not burnt out already. So so with youthfulness comes mistakes. That's part of it. This exuberance, this excitement, I can't wait. I want to do it. I want to show my love to Hashem. So you jump into the foray, and sometimes you're not careful in terms of the fear that has to happen. So we see that youthfulness is love and joy, as it says in Shir Hashirim. Because look at the proof. The Shir Hashirim Omer Shlomo B'Yaldusa. Shir Hashirim was written by Shlomo in his youth. That's when he was able to really feel the love of Hashem more so than in his older age. And in general in the world, he was the beginning. He was really brought lots of love. But for Yitzchak, then came Yitzchak, came the fear. So you see that the love comes first, and then the fear comes afterwards. So therefore, here's the main point of why we're learning this whole piece. And because of the intensity of their love and their connection to Hashem, molid miyut yirav derech eretz, it brought out a lessening of fear and derech eretz at shenir kibisoyin kachim chasom, as it manifested as an appearance of a denigration of the holy sacrifices. God forbid. In other words, from their great love of Hashem, and they felt so at ease with Hashem, so they began to, just not be so careful about things. They said, you don't have to be so particular, this and that. And, you could say that their eating of their korbanos, it was because they were feeling the love and the closeness of Hashem and all that, and they felt this is the main avoda, is the eating. I mean, you could, like a Hasidic Rebbe, the Tish, but they obviously didn't temper it properly. So no, the main avoda, the holiest thing that Rizal says, the holiest avoda a person can do is eating. Because when you're eating, your mamish, you're giving your neshama is extracting the holy sparks out of the food, while your body is ingesting the physical nourishment as well. And if you do it with the right machshavas, it's a beautiful thing. So there is what to be said. When the Kohen eats, it's a very holy process. So they were really into their spiritual growth, into their happiness with Hashem. And of course, if it gets out of hand, it gets out of hand. You get too chummy with the Rabbi Shalom, you overstep your bounds. And that's what happened.
What did they mean? They were eating and looking at Hashem. What exactly do they mean by that?
You have to show a certain reverence, and you don't, whatever the looking meant, whatever visions they had. Certain times you have to just not look. Just like you don't look when the Kohanim duchen. You don't look at the Kohanim. They wouldn't look at the Kohanim.
So they went beyond that point. It
was beyond a certain place where you stay away. You stay away. And they didn't. And therefore, 1 minute, the kiblu ayin sham, and their punishment that they received was dugmas not of an aviyu. Was similar to the punishment of not of an aviyu. They had to get killed. You got to be awfully careful. When you're in the base of English, you got to have the right amount of fear. Right? So the same thing would happen to Chafni and Pinchas. The Nigram Shevias Aron, and which caused now the captivity of the Aron, we'll see in the next chapters. Shudugmas Achur Meshamikdash, which is comparable to the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. So that's what happens, and that means that type of avoda would have to be destroyed. That type of avoda could no longer last, and then we would come back to it's all a long transition period that's happening. It's a very long transition. This really, to a great extent, could also have, to judge favorably on the era of the Shoftim, which we said was, looked to be a great failure. But on the other hand, after all is said and done, even without a king, they still, had avodas Hashem, and they still served Hashem. Okay, there were many mistakes, but it was a country that lasted without any real central authority forcing them to do Torah mitzvahs. It was more of an Ava-based reality. Coming into the land of Eretz Yisrael, Sefer Shoftim was an Ahava-based reality. We love Hashem so much, and the Mishkan, by and large, was there for the entire period of the Shoftim. So it was an era where the Jews, loved Hashem. They loved Hashem. Hashem gave them the land. They were in the land. They were eating off the land, and there was a connection to Hashem. And as you see, more often not, what's the problem? What's the problem with love? The problem with love is that it can be manifest in the wrong places. Also, you love your wife, but you also love other women. It's not a controlled love. It's not a tempered love. It's not a love with enough yira, with enough gvura. So okay, but I love you. I also love the secretary too. I love you both. Right? So they love Hashem, and you can get too friendly with the one you love. You can figure you love other people too. It isn't going to make a difference. So let's not totally write off the generation of Shoftim. This Klal Yisrael, but I'd say Chafni and Pinchas were reflective also. The generation gets the kind of leaders it deserves also. There's a connection between the leaders and the generation, and so to speak, as Chafni and Pinchas, they represent, and they're the best of that generation. And as they get killed out, it really means that whole era is being killed out. And a whole new era is evolving, to which Shmuel is the long bridge between the era of the Shoftim and the era of the Malachim. So Shmuel is a long bridge that doesn't really end until the days of Shlomo Melech. Really comes into play. But so this era of Ava played itself out that way. So let's not totally write off Chafni and Pinchas. Their mistakes came out of a great sense of love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah.
I'm just having, I have such, with all due respect, I have such difficulty with an explanation that seems to go completely against the pshat. With Nadav and
Depends how you learn the pshat.
With Nadav and Avihu, there was so little said that there's so much explanation needed. But you look back, it says they were B'nai Belial, Lo Yadu es Hashem.
Belial. What do you mean Belial? They didn't have the yoke of the fear of Shemayim. They didn't have the fear of Shemayim. Without the ol. Ol is a yoke. Ol is a yoke. They didn't have the yoke.
Grabbing the meat before it was cooked.
Because they're very excited.
We'll take it by force.
They're very excited. You have Hasidim. What about Hasidim at a tish? You don't see how they fight over the food? And the stronger Chassid gets the bigger piece of kugel. Do you notice that? You think it's misguided love. Misguided love, there's a problem.
They say to somebody, I'll take it by force if you don't.
Because, we love Hashem, we want it right away. That's how much we're into it. I mean, you go to Hasidic places, you see the strong control, the weak are pushed aside. You're going to write off the whole Hasidic movement now? I personally don't like going to Hasidus. I'm not of that nature. I'm not the pushy guy. You look at us pushing and shoving and thising and thating. And lucky guys get little bits at the end.
Sorry to say, it happens at our Kiddush too on Saturday.
I'm saying the Kiddush also.
They're at the highest level. They're not sitting out a lot of Hashem.
No, I'm saying, why are they going to the Rebbe's Tish? They can go to sleep Friday night. They're going to sleep Friday night. No, they want to be the Rebbe. They want to experience the Kedusha. Right? There's youthful exuberance, doesn't have the proper boundaries and the proper limits. And it's not pushed in the right. It's not in the right direction. It's a problem. It's a problem. Right? You're not concerned with the other things. Could be the other people weren't too excited. I say, what's the matter with you? We got to eat the korban right away. We got to be able to feel this great love of Hashem right away. I can't wait. I need to feel this. But again, since it was wrong, the Torah writes it in a very critical way for you to know that notwithstanding all their happy thoughts, it still was very wrong. That's the point we're making. The same thing with Reuven. When he changed the beds of his father, it was totally done for the love of his mother. A complete sense of love for his mother. And so the Torah writes, he slept with Yaakov's wife. When you don't temper it with the right derech eretz, a person on that level is held very accountable. So that's what the Torah is saying. So that's what I'm saying. Don't look at it just a bunch of bulvans and incredibly low, disgusting people. They were Kohanim. They did, and they were Eli's son. And again, the Navi always magnifies the sins of the great people. And we've had it many, many times already. It's not the first time we've seen it, right? So there's another example of that. Okay, that's the way Reb Tzadok learns it. I can hear people, don't like it, but this is the depths. This is the deepest way of learning things. Yeah.
Just on the idea that their love of Hashem created excessive comfort, or that they've justified by saying they were comfortable with Hashem. It reminds me a lot of how the justification that a lot of people have for talking and davening, where they say that the talking and davening is because those shuls are comfortable with Hashem. When it's quiet, it's because they're afraid of Hashem and they're not comfortable living with Him. So it's that same idea that comfort can lead to.
You're judging everyone very favorably. Bless your soul. Everyone feels comfortable in shul so much they could talk in shul.
They feel comfortable with Hashem. That's the idea that Hashem. That's my friend Hashem. These other people.
Yeah, the problem is they ain't talking. To Hashem.
I tried. I don't think that's
the one problem. They're not talking.
They rationalize it.
It's a rationalization. I don't know.
I don't even buy the.
Okay, I don't know. Now let's finish off this piece. The last paragraph. Ram Rizal. So what do the rabbis say? When the pasuk says, that their sins will not be forgiven by their karbanos. So the Gemara says their sins will not be forgiven by karbanos, but perhaps it could be addressed by limud of Torah. He says, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says, the mischaper oven beis Eli b'Torah, that the sin of beis Eli can be atoned for through the learning of Torah. But not with a korban. Darak b'zevach u'mincha ein miskaper. They won't get atonement from korbanos. Why? The Torah hu darga dito, because Torah is their level. Meaning to say, because Torah is equated with simcha. Shu bizui inyan yira, because they denigrated the aspect of fear. Ubachu betkifus ba'oz the Torah. They chose the power and might of Torah, which is simcha. Right? Learning Torah gives you joy. Vishahaya. Oh, so that's very good. So that's what we're learning on Shabbos. And you have all these questions on the final exam, and it talks about, and there's a lot of aspect of learning Torah within those questions. Gemara says, and if Yiras Shemaim is Oksara, if your Shemaim is your storehouse, then all is good and well. But if your Shemaim is not your storehouse, then it's not good. Same idea. If you have a lot of Torah, but if you don't have Yiras Hashem, it's not good. It's used the expression of the Gemara there. They give an analogy. If you have Torah without Yiras Shemaim, it's like you're putting wheat into a storehouse without any what do you call it? The stuff that what? Preservatives. Right? If you learn Torah without Yiras Shemaim, it's like storing up wheat without preservatives, meaning it'll rot. So it's the same idea. Learning Torah is such a happy thing. You feel so close to Hashem. Without Yiras Shemaim, you don't have any preservative. So it's not going to work out. Same idea. So, but in other words, the only way they could connect to Hashem is through Torah. So I guess whatever they can accomplish in their dveikus to Hashem only comes through Torah. It's like they were chavrusas with Hashem, which is true. There are chazals that say that. That's why Yeshaya says, if the sin will be forgiven with karbanos. The karbanos dug mitvila, because karbanos are like a prayer, and that's tzarech yir, that needs fear. Liyasa Iker, to be the main part. Marsha Enkim but Torah, not Torah. Simcha Iker, Simcha's the Iker. Yaki Rasso Kademas Chumasel, but fear has to come before your Chachma. In other words, we see that's the difference. Learning is Ava, davening is fear. And that's what Rabbi Nachman would always say, that you've got to learn out of davening and davening out of learning. You got to keep it as a virtuous circle. You're supposed to learn before you daven. You should have simcha. You're learning, you have simcha, and you should come to davening from a sense of simcha, and then the davening takes you to a level of yira, and then after that level of yira, now go back and learn. And that's how it's really put in the Shulchan Aruch. You should really learn before you daven, and then learn after you daven. Right? And you should daven that you should be able to accomplish your learning. For what you learn about virtues. So you daven, you should be able to keep that level of what you just learned about. So you need to have those both all the time. The love and the fear, one after the other. That's what it's all. That's the Rizal says Shabbos was made only for what? Learning and davening. Avin Yir. That's what it's all about. So Chafni and Pinchas, they were good on the Ava side, but the Yira side didn't do it for them. Ubakanim Nemer, look what it says about Pekanim. It says, "Ve'etnam lomor," and I'll give upon them fear. Dezehu ikar l'kohen gadol l'kach. L'kohen gadol. That's the main thing for a kohen gadol. L'kach nidchu nadav avihu ubeis Eli mikunas gadol. Therefore, Nadav and Avihu and the children of Eli got knocked out of the kahuna, because the kahuna, being the kohen gadol at the end of the day, has to bring a certain sense of fear. Avol mikol mako. But still in all, by their deaths, God was sanctified, and God's honor was understood, and people would now understand to have fear. Uketam, as it explains, to bring a rabbi in the Gemara, that he would only daven between the pillars. Davigarsi would he learn. The Iker Tokaf Atfila, the main part of prayer is when Kashur Mitoch Tvar Torah only comes from Torah that happens before. So again, you have to combine these two ideas, which are very important, and that's what Eli and his children forgot, and that's what none of you forgot. But when they become killed, when they get killed, then at least that aspect of fear is realized that people have to have. So that was our piece to at least look at them in a favorable light. Okay, then there's God's way of judging them, which is incredibly harsh, incredibly severe. Okay, we move now on to...
I'm curious, after they died, they went to Olam Haba, or they don't say anything about them after that. They died and that's it, that's finished, lost. Okay, well, so let Hashem worry about them. It was very bad news. You're going to see now. What happened to that family was very tragic for generations and generations, as you will see. All right, we move now to the end of Perek Beis. From Pasuk of Zion until the end, through Pasuk Lamed Vav, is a very stinging prophecy that is delivered to Eli. Chav Zion, Vayavo ish Elokim Elevi, is a man of God came to Eli, rather. Vayomer Elo, and he said to him. So first of all, who is the ish Elokim over here? So Ralbag stands alone and says the Ish Elokim. Who would you think without looking? Who has been the Ish Elokim? Pinchas. And he says, right, so he maintains that it's Pinchas, as we've had it many times in Sefer Shoftim. And now the real question is, wait a minute, if there is we know that Eli had Ruach HaKodesh. Eli had Ruach HaKodesh. Why is Hashem not coming to Eli? Why is he coming to the Zish Elokim? So Ralbag says, could very well be that the Nevuah left Eli, and he says, why? Because of his Zikna, because of his advanced age. So therefore it had come through another person. Okay, Eli was older. Could be time past he was older. Could be that maybe he was acting like an old man. because again, obviously his words of rebuke did not come close to hitting the target with his sons. He didn't really have any impact on his sons anymore. And that kind of is also a definition of a zaken. A zaken is a person, you're already old, you're not growing anymore. It's the opposite of a nar. So he was kind of spent out, so there was nothing coming from Eli anymore. So he said it would be Pinchas. However, Chazal, the Medrash, says it was Elkanah. And the Malbim says, why it has to be Elkanah, because if it was Pinchas, although Pinchas could very well have still been around and would have been suited to make such a prophecy, but since we'll see Pinchas was a Nogea B'davar, had a bias, because we're going to develop this whole idea, there were two children of Aaron, Elazar and Isamar, and there was this constant shifting of the high priesthood between those families, the families of Isamar and the families of Elazar. Now Pinchas is Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. So Pinchas represents the family of Elazar. Eli came from the family of Isamar. So what the prophecy is going to say is that the grand kahuna is going to move away from Eli, who is a descendant of Isamar, and it's now going to eventually go to descendants of Elazar, to which Pinchas was. So it wouldn't sing right that a descendant of Elazar would prophesy in the name of God that the high priesthood would move from the family of Isamar to the family of Elazar. So therefore Hashem didn't feel it proper to put Pinchas to be the one to give that message. It should come from a neutral area, and it comes from Elkanah, who's a Levi. He's the guy who serves the Kohanim. He says, I have no axe to grind. I'm only a Levi anyway. So let it come from a neutral source. But there's far-reaching aspects to this prophecy over here. Okay, Pasuk Chav Zayin. So, again, Vayavo Ish Elokim El Eli. So a man of God comes to Eli. Vayomer Elav, and he says the following. Ko Amar Hashem, so says Hashem. Now, the next few words, there's two different ways to understand these words. Haniglo niglesi el beis avicha. I have surely been revealed to the house of your father. V'hiyosam lebeis Paro, when you were in the house of Paro. So, Ralbag says that the problem here is that letter Hey. When it says Komer Hashem, the letter Hey. Hey, haniglo, niglesi, usually is the beginning of a rhetorical question. It's a Hey HaShe'elah, a Hey of a question. And the problem is, many commentators say, I don't see any question. So they're wondering why. So some say, well, you got to wait a few verses to get to the question. But the Ralbag says, he calls it a Hey Ha'amitis. It's a Hey of truth. And he's saying, yes, the truth is, Hashem, I revealed myself to the house of your fathers when you were in Egypt. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. In other words, it's well known. It's well known I was revealed to the base of Vicha. Who's the base of Vicha? The Tziddah says the base of Vicha is Aaron, who prophesies in Mitzrayim. Okay, but that's one way of looking at it. The Malbim, and it's easier to go throughout the Psukim with the interpretation of the Malbim. Malbim says there's a whole fundamental issues being laid down over here, and he says with a hey of questioning. It's a question, and the question rings something like this. It says, so says Hashem, did I reveal myself to the house of your father that you should become Kohanim for Paro? When you would be Kohanim, do you think I wanted to make your family Kohanim like Kohanim to Paro? That's a question mark. Meaning to say that in Egypt there were Kohanim too. There were priests in Egypt. He had priests. But they weren't Kohanim for the Jewish people. They didn't represent the Jewish people. And they weren't Kohanim that represented Hashem.
Jews were Kohanim?
No.
The Egyptians.
There were Kohanim. There were priests. Yosef instituted, there were priests before Yosef came along. And we know in Sefer Bereshit, Kohanim didn't have to work.
So
there was such a law. No, they were Goyish Kohanim. They were Egyptian Kohanim. There's an institution called the priesthood in Egypt. There's an institution called the priesthood. And the priest didn't work. And the priest got a portion of government funding to live off of. Yosef instituted that. So that eventually, the tribe of Levi wouldn't have to work and things like that. But there really was a priesthood even before Yosef. Yosef just arranged that they wouldn't have to work. So there was a concept of priesthood. So like Hashem is saying, so Hashem is saying, did I make you into your father's house to be Liosam base Paro, to be for the house of Paro, to be priests for Paro? In other words, because Malman's going to go through a whole thing to describe that Kohanim. What is the role of a Kohen? The role of a Kohen has two missions. One is to be a messenger of the Jewish people, and one is to be a messenger of Hashem. There are messengers of the Jewish people to be the ambassadors, the go-betweens between them and Hashem, in their service to Hashem. A Jew finds it difficult to come close to Hashem. A Jew did Averos. He feels distance from Hashem. So a Jew becomes a Metzora. That reflects a great distancing from the Jew to Hashem. Who helps them out? It's the Kohen's job. The Kohen says, okay, I'll come to Hashem for you. I'll speak on your behalf. Don't worry, we'll work things out. So the Kohen on the one hand was a messenger of the Jewish people. And they're also messengers of God. That they do the will of Hashem. They bring the korbanos, things like that. They represent Hashem and they represent the Jewish people. They are the ultimate marriage counselors between the Jewish people and Hashem. Okay? So, but the Kohanim of Egypt, they weren't priests of Hashem. They weren't priests of the nation of Hashem. They were just priests to Paro, who were appointed by him, who received their stipends from Paro. You get what you need to eat. And basically, there was nothing spiritual to them. They were, like Christian priests. Nothing special to that. They just, they were appointed. But that's who they were. Not because they were such honorable people. They're the ones who got the perks, right? So when I revealed, Hashem says, he's saying the name of Hashem. When I revealed myself in the house of your fathers to become the Kohanim, I made it to be Kohanim for the Jews, for Hashem, not like in Egypt, to be for the Egyptians, but for the Jewish people, right? And therefore there's all kinds of different aspects that come out of all this, which becomes elaborated on in the next psukim, and which will obviously come to the final point where you don't abuse that privilege. And we'll see in the next few psukim how they're supposed to represent Hashem and the Jewish people, and how what they did not represent Hashem and the Jewish people, and that's the failure that they had. So now in Chavches, he's going to explain to what purpose Jewish Kohanim are meant to serve. That's what Chavches is going to tell us now. Okay. Listen, you can also understand clearly why Elkanah, by the way, should be the one giving the Musar. Right? I mean, obviously Elkanah was one to give the Musar because, nobody wanted to go to Shiloh. And Elkanah, although he too had love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously had a tremendous love. If you didn't have love for Hashem, you wouldn't be doing the things he did to schlep out all the way to always to the base of Mikdash, to the Mishkan and stuff like that. But on the other hand, he was still respectful. And he had a certain degree of yira. And therefore he turns and says, so he was the best Jew around, and he's the one to give the Musar to the one who didn't do as a Kohen should be. People respected now his son Shmuel much more than they respected the Kohanim who were there. So therefore, the one who gives Musar has to be the one who has no fault of his own. Elkanah clearly did not have any faults, and therefore he'd be the one to be able to give the Musar. So let's continue and see now. So what is now the role of a Kohen, a Jewish Kohen? So what did Hashem do? So when Hashem revealed himself in Mitzrayim, in the house of Paro, as it were to say, when I made that there should be Jewish Kohanim, and not secular Kohanim. And therefore we go on to Chavches, Ubocharo so mikol shiftei Yisrael, I chose him from all the tribes of Israel, meaning the house of Aaron. Li lekohen, for me to be a Kohen, la'alos al nizbechi, to bring offerings on my mizbeach, laktir kataras, to burn the incense offering, loses ephod lefane, to carry the apron, to wear the apron before me, and I gave to the house of your father as kol ishei b'nei Yisrael, all the burnt offerings of the Jewish people. So what does he mean by that? So now he's explaining the two aspects. That number one, I chose him from all the tribes. Meaning he is the one who's going to be the representative of the Jewish people to serve instead of the Jewish people. They're Kohanim for the Jewish people. Really, the Jewish people are supposed to do the avodah. But I chose him from all the tribes that he will do the avodah for the Jewish people. And I did not pick him because of the house of Paro, but rather to serve Paro, but rather li lekohen, to be a kohen to me. Now this is the point where you are a messenger of Hashem. Right? So now he goes back. So how is he chosen to be to me for a kohen? In three ways. Way number one, la'los al mizbechi, to bring korbanos, right, to cause offerings to be brought. And number two, to burn the ketores, which is also representative of Hashem. And number three, losei seifed lefanai, to wear holy garments to show that you are servants of Hashem. Why do you wear holy garments? Because you are representative of Hashem, who's very holy and very special. You wear garments that reflect that. Right. So, one second. And now going back to the point of how they were chosen from the Jewish people. And therefore it says, "Ve'etna leveis avicha," and I gave to the house of your father, kol ishei b'nei Yisrael, all the korbanos of the Jewish people. So the Malman explains, so since you're a messenger and you stand between Hashem and the Jewish people, so I give you, I elevated your reward from the korbanos. So now you get the korbanos, but still that's only on condition that, and look how he's calling them. He only gave them the ishim, meaning the things that are destined to go onto the fire. Where therefore it's from a korban, that there's a part that belongs to the owner, right? Which is, let's say, a shlomim, you give part of the korban to the owner, and the kohanim really don't get anything. And then there's a part that goes to Hashem, like the meat of a korban chatas and an asham, and different types of menachos that are meant to be burnt. And Hashem was meichel a little bit from his portion, and that goes to the kohanim. And therefore it's like they're eating holy things that already were burnt, as it were. So notice Hashem was giving them his direct portion. So that obviously the fact that they would take the three-pronged fork and start pressing on things before the animal got burnt and all this means that you weren't taking from your portion, Hashem, so you're making your own portion. So that's what he's saying. So, you were set up to be a representative of the Jews, a representative of Hashem, and therefore what you got from the korbanos was as a representative of Hashem. And we'll see how this was abused. We'll see that tomorrow, Mir Tzashem.